The Crunchyroll Awards at this point in time in the anime community is kind of looked at just a thing. In a sense that we see what picks come out, we get mad over what anime got picked and what anime doesn't get picked, the awards are given out, and we kind of forget about it for the rest of the year. And while yeah, it is still treated as a thing that happened, it's still an important enough thing where people make videos, have discussions about it, and actually track what gets nominated and what doesn't. But this video isn't actually about the nominations or who I think it's going to win. I can make a whole separate video or a whole separate collection of shorts on that, but I want to talk about the overarching issues that I have with the Crunchyroll Anime Awards and certain things and certain aspects that I feel keeps it from being treated as more of a serious thing within the community. But that's enough intros for one day. Let's go ahead and talk about why I dislike the Crunchyroll Anime Awards. Now, when it comes to the actual rulings that is set for the Anime Awards, I actually don't have many problem with them. In fact, I'm okay with the majority of the rulings, but there's one in particular that causes me so much stress looking at it. I still don't understand why it was implemented, even though we were kind of given a reason already. And that ruling is anime that lie between September of the current award year to October of the previous year are the ones that can qualify for being nominated. Now, on the surface, this doesn't look like a big problem. The Anime Awards is just setting a timeline in which anime could qualify for its nominations, which is perfectly fine. All award shows do this because you need a set parameter on when shows can actually be in the talks. But when you look deeper into how anime release structures work and how we built the anime community itself on seasons, you see that becomes a bigger problem. Animes like Bocchi the Rock, Mob Psycho 100, and Chainsaw Man, all animes that do deserve the acknowledgement of their qualities, should get nominations, and as of time of recording, have been nominated for the awards, but these are anime that came out in 2022 that we're talking about in 2024 for the 2023 Anime Awards. And to me, looking at that jumble of numbers gives me agita. For an anime awards that is taking place in the 2024 year, we shouldn't be talking about anime that came out in 2022 that are 2 years ago. More appropriately, a little more than a year and a half. Yet anime that came out only a month ago to 3 months ago aren't accepted in this discussion. Anime like The Apothecary Diaries, Goblin Slayer Season 2, Undead Unluck, and Rising the Shield Hero Season 3 are anime we're gonna have to wait a whole year, if not more, to bring into the discussion again. And in my opinion, those animes have far more right to be talked about in the 2023 Anime Awards than anime of 2 years ago. Given the fact that these animes actually came out in 2023. Now, there are sources that work inside the Crunchyroll Anime Awards that have come out to say that the reason Crunchyroll implemented this rule is in order to fight recency bias within the anime community. And at the very least, that train of thought does make some sense. Again, going back to the way that anime is structured with its releases and the way that seasons work, it would make sense when you have the Anime Awards so close to the beginning of the year that fall anime usually would be dominating a lot of the nominations and awards. But when you look back at the past nominations, a lot of those nominations and awards that were given out isn't predominantly dominated by the fall season. Again, there are some anime that did come out that dominated a lot of the nominations. Anime like Attack on Titan, Jujutsu Kaisen, Spy X Family, but those animes I would say deserve to be dominating those nominations. They weren't there because of recency bias, they were there because they became the biggest anime of that respective year. Of course, the biggest anime that are going to dominate it are going to be the ones that, again, are big. Because let's face it, the Crunchyroll Anime Awards is nothing more than a popularity contest. It's the reason why certain shows like Attack on Titan, Jujutsu Kaisen, My Hero Academia, and Demon Slayer have the most nominations out of any anime in the entire run of the awards. And a lot of those animes haven't really come out in the fall season for very long. Demon Slayer has been consistently coming out at least in spring and summer. My Hero Academia usually comes out during either the winter or the summer. Attack on Titan has consistently come out in the summer or winter, and Jujutsu Kaisen recently came out during the summer. None of these animes that we've actually seen have consistently ever come out in the fall, yet they predominantly have dominated the Anime Awards throughout the entirety of their run. And while they're still trying to combat the recency bias, there are still animes that have it, if not stronger now that there's not much more anime fighting for that. For example, Spy X Family has a season anime that came out in 2022 and 2023. And while we're only grading the 2022 season for Spy X Family, because it came out with a 2023 season, it's still in people's minds and there's still that recency bias. Maybe not for the anime that we're grading, but it's still going to be in people's minds because it came out recently. Or how about anime that start in a particular season that makes it qualify, but runs until the fall season? I've brought this anime a lot already, but Jujutsu Kaisen's most recent season started in the summer of 2023, but because it had about 24 episodes, it lasted for 2 seasons on average, which means that the last season that we got of Jujutsu Kaisen ended at the end of the fall season. And as of the time of this recording, that was only about a month ago. It still has that recency bias, and while it is an anime that completely broke the internet, almost every week an episode was released, there is still that recency bias that lingers that Crunchyroll's trying to fight. There are all these issues that come up with this single ruling, but there's an issue I wasn't expecting to deal with until it came to fruition this year, and that's the issue with frieren Beyond the Journey. Now, when I bring up frieren, you're probably looking at me as a crazy person, because the ruling clearly states that the qualifying time for animes to be considered for nomination is September of the current award year to October of the previous year, and you would be correct. Most fall anime wouldn't fall into contention for that. But what if I were to tell you that there was the fall anime, frieren, actually fell within that boundaries, but still was a fall anime? For those of you who may not actually know, frieren Beyond the Journey actually came out on September 29th, 2023. And it just barely scrapes by, but it does fit within the parameters that the Crunchyroll Anime Awards set for itself. And if we were to assume that it follows the rest of the rules it has, given the fact it's an animated series, the primary production was in Japan, at least one episode was aired in Japan television between September 2023 and October of 2022, and at least one episode was legally distributed outside of Japan between 2022 and 2023, we can firmly assume that frieren qualifies for these awards. Yet if you look at the nominations, it's nowhere to be found. Now, I get it. It's easy to look at what I just said and to just look at me as a salty fan that doesn't see frieren on it and wants to make all of these excuses given the fact that the judges might have not nominated it, or if not as popular as I think it was, or just a bunch of other different excuses. But I'll go back to what I said earlier in the video. Crunchyroll and its Anime Awards is a popularity contest, and frieren is arguably one of the most popular anime to come out in last year. I mean, it was being talked all over the internet. You couldn't go on Twitter without looking about frieren, and let's not forget, frieren is in a special class of anime. That special class being an anime that was actually able to dethrone Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood from the #1 top-rated spot in Mal. And as of recording this video, my apologies, I've been saying that a lot this video, frieren is still on that #1 spot. And for an anime, a 2023 anime, to be rated that highly above an anime that the anime community has deemed one of the best anime in the entirety of the selection of anime that we have, for frieren to not be nominated anywhere in the 2023 Anime Awards is baffling. As much as you might not like frieren, as much as you might think I'm a salty fan for not seeing frieren nominated here, you can't deny that an anime of that popularity, of that size, of that high regard, not being nominated doesn't seem a bit weird. Now, I haven't seen any official statement on it, but at least chatter among the anime community does seem to think that the reason it wasn't nominated at all is because frieren is not finished. It is a 28 episode anime, and since it came out, kind of early, but during the fall season, it's gonna go and bleed over into winter of 2024, meaning that it probably won't be recognized by Crunchyroll, which I actually think is a fair assumption. My only annoyance with something like that is that Crunchyroll, in its ruling, does not specify that an anime needs to be finished in order to qualify. It set its rules, it set its parameters, it set what needs to qualify in order to be a nomination, and an anime not finishing is not one of those. They could probably look at it and saying that maybe it's too close or the fact that it's not finished, I get that, but it's just weird to see an anime fit the parameters of what it needs to be nominated and it not finish. And honestly, it kind of worries me, because if we don't see frieren in the 2023 Anime Awards, then the safe assumption is that we could potentially see it in the 2024 Anime Awards. But if Crunchyroll wants to really stick to its rules, then we might not see it. Yeah, so this is editing mise. I kind of want to point out some things that I said. I had to cut out a whole part because I realized frieren would still qualify for the 2024 Anime Awards. I misread the wording on certain stuff, so that wasn't really true. It will qualify for the 2024, if not in 2023, because it had at least one episode release. I thought in my mind that it was more of a sense of it had to debut in that time, but the rules actually stated that it needed to just be released. So I fully admit I fucked up. Okay, back to the video. Sure, you can call me nitpicky all you want, but it is an award ceremony. We have these rulings for a reason, to show qualifications for the current year that we're talking about. And it's stuff like this that just shows why the anime community just doesn't really care that much about the Crunchyroll Anime Awards, other than what I've said constantly in this video, it being nothing more than a popularity contest. And sure, do I want them to change that rule? Yes, but it seems like Crunchyroll isn't even bothered by the rule or doesn't even acknowledge half the things that I even worry about. So will it change? Probably not, but it's at least good for me to voice my opinions on stuff like that, because why the hell not? Now, initially, my opinion for the voting process of everything was completely different, mainly because, if you haven't known, Crunchyroll Anime Awards has like a 7-30 split, where 70% goes to the judges and 30% goes to people who vote online. And my initial take on this was, what's the point of voting as someone online when the judges just have more of the power? But looking into a bunch of things, I've realized just how kind of weird the split is in general, and how the judges, while having the 70%, don't actually have that much power, because the 70% that the judges actually get don't actually matter unless the majority of the judges are actually in consensus with a topic. But given the fact that there's 6 nominations, everyone probably has their own opinion on other things, it's probably a lot more split than you think, which means that 30% of voting power that fans have goes a lot longer than you think it does. Now, you still think I'd be on the side of giving the power mostly to the fans at that point and just making it more of a fan vote, if that was the case. If fans can impact it just a lot with just the 30% that they have, might as well just give them the whole shebang, right? But then I ran into a whole different other league of things and legal issues, and basically it comes down to wanting to better market or want a better merit. Now, to better explain what I'm actually talking about, we actually need to step outside the world of anime and look to the other awards that exist in the realm of entertainment. Because in order to properly talk about this part, I thought it was in my best interest that I look at actual other awards and see how they do their whole process. And while this isn't official, this is my own creation in a sense, I'm going to put some of these awards in primary awards and secondary awards. Primary awards are basically stuff like the Grammys, the Tonys, the Oscars, the Emmys, and these awards don't have any fan participation. They're usually either an organization or a committee full of hundreds of people and, professionals, industry experts who actually know about the products that they're talking about far more than the layman that can actually vote properly on these things. These are also the awards that you kind of want to get when you're in that industry and the ones that are highly respected. For example, whenever someone's being presented as a award winner or something, they're usually presented as a 4-time Grammy nomination winner, or a 4-time Tony winner, or a 3-time Oscar winner. These are the ones that look nice in front of somebody's name. Then there are the secondary awards, things like the MTV, the VH1s, the Kids' Choice Awards, and to an extent, those ones are still respected, those are still recognized award shows, but those are ones that I feel like have less merit due to the fact of fan interaction or fan integration in them. Now don't get me wrong, like I said before, you still want those awards. At the end of the day, an award is an award. But if you have like a Grammy or if you have an Emmy or an Oscar, you're not going to be presented as a 2-time MTV award winner. You're going to be presented as a 3-time Grammy nomination or a 2-time Emmy nomination, because those are more important than the other ones. And I feel like the fan voting and the fan integration has a lot to do with that, because the Oscars and those primary awards are more respected because the voting is done by people who are in the industry, people who have put in the time and the effort to be respected enough in their opinion to do so. And while there's still a committee for some of those other ones, the fans still have an influence on that. They still have a level of power that to an extent matters, which I feel like devalues some of those awards. And I feel like that's where the Crunchyroll Anime Awards kind of sit. Especially when you look at other anime awards, at least for me, what caught my eye was the Tokyo Anime Awards. And they have their voting system similar to how the Oscars have it, where there is a set committee and there's a set group of people and there's no fan interaction, which means when you look at some of the ballots and some of the nominations and some of the winners, they look vastly different from some of the other nominations and some of the winners from the Crunchyroll Anime Awards. Obviously there's going to be crossover because, again, when a big anime becomes big, there's going to be some crossovers, but like the difference is kind of baffling when you look at everything. And so when I look at the Crunchyroll Anime Awards and how it does its system, I can kind of more understand, as I'm making this video, why people just care less and less for the Crunchyroll Anime Awards. This also makes you question why I'm still making this video, but I'm already like so deep into recording this that I have to just keep going at this point. So as much as I hate the voting process and the multiple voting per day and just the way they do their whole voting system, the answers to fix this problem are a bit more nuanced than the previous problem. Because on one hand, if you do want to make it prestigious, yeah, you go ahead, you set up a committee, you only allow a couple hundred of industry experts voting on your ballots and just have the fans just watch them make the decisions. But at the end of the day, we have to remember that Crunchyroll is a company that sells a product. And honestly, the Anime Awards help them sell that product. All of the anime that they're talking about, or at least the majority of them, are going to be on their service. And so, in order for fans to vote on them properly, they still need to watch those animes, which means they have to subscribe to the Crunchyroll account in order to watch the animes that they need to in order to vote on the animes that they want to win. It's all a process of, do you want better marketing for your product, or you don't want to be looked as prestigious? And honestly, that's an issue that is not in my pay grade. Like I said before, it's a problem that I'm still going to have, but with the complexity of the answer, it's one that I could probably just let side, or at least have to exist with, as long as the Crunchy Anime Awards exist as the Crunchyroll Anime Awards. Now, the last issue we're going to be addressing is categories, and this one is just more annoying, if anything, because I don't understand what type of process or what they're going for every year when they choose their categories. For starters, we have categories that they have removed that I feel like just makes no sense to remove. Two of those categories in particular were best fight scene and best manga. Now, don't get me wrong, I could kind of get best manga. Again, it is called the Crunchyroll Anime Awards, so to have a non-anime category does seem kind of weird. But when you realize and you just think about it for 5 seconds, knowing how impactful manga is in the anime community and realizing that like 95% of all anime that we come from is usually sourced from a manga, not having a best manga category feels weird. I'm not saying you need to go ahead and make a whole section for manga, but for something as important as manga in anime, yeah, we should probably have a section for best manga. Maybe it comes into difficulty of making the rules for it and setting the limits of what can be nominated, but I think it's worth it to at least have something like that for the awards. Now, the other one is best fight scene, and in a sense, I might get that one because it might harken back to something I didn't actually talk about in the previous section that I kind of wanted to talk about for here. Because with the removal for best fight scene and some other small things it's doing, I feel like the Crunchyroll Anime Awards is trying to give the nominations a bit more diversity, i.e. not have it so shonen heavy. And to be fair, I do kind of get that part. There were more anime out there than just shonen. Romance, sci-fi, medieval, fantasy, there's a whole bunch of things out there that's for the anime consumer. I get that, but I feel like something as important as a fight scene does fit within the Anime Awards. Not only that, but shonen isn't the only one that can have a good fight scene. Vivi Fluent Eye Song is not a shonen, but has probably one of my favorite fight scenes that came out that year. Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maiden is not a shonen, but that anime has somehow pumped out beautiful fight scenes out of nowhere. Hell, just from this year, My Happy Marriage, an anime that leans heavily into the romantic drama section, had a pretty good fight scene this year. And honestly, if it wasn't for Jujutsu Kaisen somehow bringing out a banger every single week, I would put one or two of those fights from that show into high contention for fight scene of the year. So fight scenes don't have to be strictly from shonen shows. It can come from anywhere. And honestly, if there is a show that got nominated for best fight scene and is not a shonen, is even more impressive when you think about all the shonen that come out in this year alone. Then we have some where I kind of get the thought process of the change, but it was probably better the previous way than it is the current way. For example, in previous years we used to have two categories called Best Boy and Best Girl, but it seems like both of those were combined in the Must Protect at All Costs section. And I get the logic behind it, but I feel like you watered down the category in a sense by making it one rather than two. And while I still probably want a Best Boy and Best Girl, and I still think that's better that way, I kind of get the Most Protect at All Costs because at the end of the day, there might be some gender non-specific character that might not fit in any of those categories, and putting Best Boy and Best Girl might complex that situation. Actually, now that I think about it, it's probably better that we have a Most Protect at All Costs category. Then there's some category ideas that they've never implemented, and I'm kind of baffled they never did because you would assume they would have in the first place. For example, we go through the genres of all the animes when it comes to fantasy, romance, comedy, but one genre that seems to constantly be ignored is isekai, and with the growing number of isekai that constantly come out, you think at a certain point, the isekai genre would just get its own category. Yet it never had its own category, and I don't get that logic at all. You would think such a prevalent and growing category in the anime community would eventually get one. I could get maybe in the earlier years of the Crunchyroll Anime Awards when isekai wasn't that big or was just kind of starting out, but the fact that half of what comes out nowadays is basically an isekai, yeah, why not just give it its own category? It's kind of an easy win in a sense because you make a whole section that already is saturated to the brim, almost to the point when shonens come out all year. Then we have the categories that they add that I question why they add. Like this year, for example, we have Best Cinematography and Best Art Direction. And I'm going to be very blunt. I don't know how many normal anime fans are going to be able to differentiate them. Hell, I can't even differentiate them half the time. And I assume that most people are just going to look at what art looks the prettiest. Like, I get the purpose of adding them, but when you have a voting process that leans into the fan base, most anime fans are not going to know what to look for when it comes to art direction, and most anime fans are not going to know what to look for when it comes to cinematography. So that one just comes to what looks the prettiest, and again, like I repeated before, just why? Now, sometimes I do understand where Crunchyroll is coming from. For example, with the protagonist and antagonist categories, I would like to have those, and I do think they should bring it back, but I understand not wanting to deal with the headache, because if you remember the last time those categories were implemented, we had the whole Eren Yeager debacle, where Eren was nominated for both categories, and while in a sense they were both right, in a sense they were also wrong, and that kind of just showed that people didn't really know what a protagonist and an antagonist was. For example, when looking at the Death Note series, you would probably call L a protagonist and Light the antagonist, when in reality, for the proper terms to actually work, the roles is actually reversed. Light is the protagonist and L is the antagonist. Now, I'm not gonna go into the nuances of what actual protagonist and actual antagonist means. I made a whole video about that 2 years ago when this debacle actually happened, so go check out that video if you want my full breakdown on whether I think Eren is a protagonist or an antagonist. Basically, this whole section can be boiled down to Crunchyroll doesn't know what the hell to do with its categories. And in a sense, I kinda get it. It is an award show that hasn't even been going on for 10 years, so it's probably still feeling out a lot more kinks. However, you would assume that the categories would be a little bit more concrete, knowing exactly how the flow is. And with the implementation of just all the VAs from different countries, they're probably not trying to saturate the awards with so many awards. But I will be honest, in order to give a better idea and a better grasp and a better selection of awards, yeah, you probably got to make them a bit more long. Bring back all the ones like best fight scene and best manga. Hell, I'd even argue you could bring back best CGI. At this point, with how much CGI gets put into anime, why not? That's a good section to have for some of these selections. And if they want more diversity as well, then going and adding more of those genre categories does help. Add the isekai section since more isekai comes out, or add a sci-fi one since we do get a good amount of sci-fi that comes out. Hell, you can even add a horror section if it does warrant it for that year. A better selection of categories I think will help with the diversity that Crunchyroll seems to want for its anime awards. And a diverse selection of nominations will help bring more attention to anime that probably needed a lot more than others. And I would like to see that too. I'd like to see the genres get more spotlight. I'd like to see manga get more attention. I'd just like to see certain characters even get the love that they deserve. And frankly, that's not a bad thing at all. Now you're probably asking yourself what was even the point or reason for making this video, and I'm not gonna lie, part of it was to bring into the tension for the frieren thing, but the main point of it is to show that even though us as an anime community kind of treat the anime awards as a whatever thing, it's still important in the sense that it gives us the space and the voice to share our thoughts on everything that happened in the previous year and to celebrate everything that's happened in the previous year. And when Crunchyroll fails to properly represent that for us, it kind of makes our conversation a little bit less worthwhile. And with each passing year it does continue to fail, it continues to make it a little less worthwhile. I understand there are also other avenues and other places that you could still have these discussions, and don't get me wrong, those are still good places to go to. For example, Anime Trending do have their own anime award selection, and that's a really good thing. But Crunchyroll is still the biggest conglomerate when it comes to anime, at least when it comes to the Western side of things. And so most people are going to have their eyes a lot more on the Crunchyroll side of things than other people who are doing it. So yeah, call me naive if you want, but I hope that the Crunchy Anime Awards does get better, so our discussions get better, and we have a better space to do that. Again, call me naive if you want, but I'm a person that always likes to look at things half full. And I believe that Crunchyroll, if they really want to, can put in that effort to be better. And yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you all so much for checking it out. This was a long video to make, and I don't know why I spent all the time doing it, but you know, here we are talking about it now. first off, hopefully when this video comes out, it will happen, but thank you so much for getting me to 1,000 subscribers. It's been a long time, and I get it. It's a small milestone in the grand landscape of YouTube, but to get to 1,000 is just the beginning. I'm glad that I kind of finished that part 1, and I can actually work on part 2 of trying to actually now getting this channel monetized. So, you know, hopefully more content will go out, as getting to 1,000 has definitely motivated me to make more content. It's honestly, seeing my account grow from this video made me want to make this video, because I saw that and I'm just like, oh, this is actually reality, or in a sense. I know that's a lot to say for, you know, 1,000, but I do genuinely thank you guys. It is heartwarming to actually get to 1,000. I also apologize for the delay in videos. I meant to upload more frequently, like every Monday, but I got sick and other life stuff just happened. But the ball should be rolling from here on out. We'll get videos out as we can, and as February comes along, we got Valentine's Day and Black History Month to talk about, so we got some interesting videos that we're going to be making, boys. But to the normal call of action, if you can, subscribe to my channel so I can keep making these videos, and if you did like this video, push the like button, and let me know in the comments below what you think about the Crunchyroll Anime Awards, because I get it, we're all over the place in the animated community when it comes to it. I personally do find it fun. Like, over in our podcast, the 3 Weeks a Week podcast, we do the game thing every year for it. So I like the Anime Awards, but I know a lot of people really don't. But let me know in the comments down below. And if you want to support the channel, there's links that you can click to in the description in order to help for all that stuff. But until then, I hope you guys have a lovely day, morning, evening, wherever you are when you're watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.
I'm like so gay.